Welcome to Empathy Corner with Toad Counselling. I'm your host, Tony Matthews, and today we'll be talking to Claire, who is a student counsellor, and we'll be discussing her journey into becoming a therapist. Hi, Claire.
Hello.
So you're a student for counselling, and you are at a placement at Toad Counselling and another placement as well?
Yes, SWAST.
SWAST.
South West Ambulance Services, whatever the T stands for.
SWAF.
Yes. SWAF.
Okay. Okay, so you're a trainee therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it exactly that drew you to this new profession?
I think especially living in a little tiny place in North Devon like this, there's not a lot of mental health services available.
Yeah.
And I think seeing a lot of people struggling with mental health and things like that, I've had my own experiences with it. And I think it was just something I wanted to be involved with and try and change.
Okay.
New and shiny and wanting to change the world, that kind of thing.
So when did this revelation come to pass? Because obviously you've been in training, for 3 years now?
It's closer to 4, I think.
4 years, yeah, of course.
Long time. It was something I've always been interested in, mental health wise. But I think the decision to actually start and that I really wanted to pursue it a bit more, ironically, was before COVID hit.
Okay.
So I think the first lockdown, that was when I first thought, actually, do you know what, this is something worth looking into.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably would have started from about then.
Well, that was 2020?
Don't ask me dates. Yes. Yes, because that was because I used to work behind a bar.
Okay.
And obviously, first lockdown, that stopped.
Yeah.
I jinxed myself. I believed that catering and bar work were the only professions you would never struggle to find work in.
And then COVID hit, yeah.
Yeah, so that I did well there. So yeah, I think it was about 2020, something like that.
Okay. So what is it that you do now for work?
I am a full-time care assistant. I work night shifts, which makes balancing all of this extra fun.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah, so I have full-time night shifts working for people with advanced dementia mainly. That's the unit I normally work in. I also have college 1 full day every week.
Yeah.
My 2 placements, obviously my supervision, trying to find some time to go to the gym, maybe some social life.
And don't forget your own therapy.
Yes, of course. That is mandatory, of course.
It is. So how do you juggle all of this? And still stay sane yourself?
Oh, well, we're assuming I'm sane. It's taking a lot of effort with organisation, and I have a big calendar stuck up on my wall with everything written, highlighted, shiny things, reminders on my phone. Just trying to stay organised and try and still find time for me to actually have some me time.
The elusive self-care.
Yes, very elusive.
So what do you do? You brought it up, so what did you do to manage your self-care? Because that's a lot of stuff you're doing, and working nights, and then obviously you've got to sleep through the day as well, and do placements, and college, gym, and
assignments, don't forget essays, case studies.
How do you find the time to self-care?
I'll admit, to start with, I didn't, or at least it wasn't very much.
Yeah.
I kind of had the drive to keep going, and it's also a little bit of imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
On the outside, it seems like everyone else, your classmates, friends, have all got a million different things going on, and they can manage it, and they just keep going. But obviously, especially doing this work, you realise that that's not the case, and learn not to just take everything at face value.
Yep.
And I think my counsellor in my personal therapy, she also made a point of mentioning that you need you time and you need to have a break. So I think for me, actually taking the time to sleep, not forcing myself to run on the bare minimum anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the gym helps massively. I do a lot of weight training, not cardio, that's depressing.
So how do you feel that the gym helps?
It's excellent for just having that hour of being able to focus and going through the physical movements. And even if you can't necessarily see a difference, you can feel it.
Yeah.
So I can lift quite heavy now.
Go on then. How much do you bench?
You
lift.
My nickname in the gym is Captain Ramen Arms.
Awesome.
So bench, I think my personal best isn't that great. I think it's only something like 45 kilos, something like that. But my personal best for the deadlift was 100.
Okay, very cool.
And that I'm looking to work on as well. Squat, I think my personal best may have been 85 or 90.
Yeah.
So that was a little while ago and I had to take a break. But I'm back at it now. So I'm working at it. And I am determined to keep going and lift heavier. That's my thing.
Brilliant.
And music. Music is also my other big personal therapy thing, self-care.
Okay, when you say music, what do you mean?
Going to gigs, my drive to and from college, that is also a big thing. I sit there in my car, I have my window down, and I turn my music up really loud and I sing along to it, or scream or growl or whatever I'm listening to.
Really?
Yes. And I've definitely amused people stuck in traffic with me before.
Fabulous. Because
I just stopped caring. My car is my little bubble and I let it all out with my music. Provide a show.
Excellent. So you've got the gym, you've got music.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you do? Is there anything else that you use for that self-care?
Creative writing. I talk to my boyfriend a lot. He is very good for emotional support.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it is sometimes occasionally telling me off and saying, you do realise you don't have to do that, you can just relax. And I think I need that sometimes. I think I need that voice of reason to just tell me to stop.
Yeah.
I also really like cooking, so I enjoy making some really nice food for myself at home.
Fabulous.
I'm trying to think what else I might do. I think that's pretty much it for my self-care, really. Sleep, food, music, gigs, and the gym.
So quite a lot going on.
Yeah.
So very busy life by the sounds of things.
It is a bit hectic.
So when it comes to, because you're almost at the end of your training as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is your last year of college.
Yeah.
And you've got to, in order to pass, you've got to accrue your 100 hours with actual people and working with them.
Yep.
So when it comes to that, thinking back to the start of your training, did you have any expectations in regards to the courses that you were doing and the impact that they would have had, or they were going to have, or have had?
I don't think anyone that starts doing this course understands the level of self-awareness that you develop through both your classwork, working with clients. You'll have things come up and you'll have realizations. So my expectations were going to be, it's all focused on other people and obviously your clients and whatnot, but then all the work you do, you suddenly have all these realizations about yourself. That was very unexpected.
So if you don't mind sharing, what were some of these realizations that came to light?
I don't know if I can necessarily go with some of the realizations. However, one of the things that I have come to both love and hate, because obviously I'm studying integrative humanistic counselling.
Okay.
But conditions of worth.
Ooh.
Carl Rogers' theory of conditions of worth. So where we absorb the things that other people put onto us and their expectations of us.
Yeah.
Picking that apart to find out exactly what I think and what my thoughts are compared to what I've absorbed from other people and how I think I should feel about things, that's always a bit of a mind bender. Like having to pick that apart, that's...
So when it comes to picking things like that apart, is that something you do in the writing studies that you do for your classwork, or is it something that you bring up in therapy or supervision, or is it?
It started off in the classroom, so various bits of work, especially when we first started looking at the conditions of worth, obviously. Mm-hmm. That's when you have these moments, and me and some classmates joked about calling it falling down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Because you'll have that one realisation, and you think, oh, well, that comes from this, and then this person said this, and you fall down this string of thinking, oh, that's where that comes from. And obviously now somebody might say something in a session,
yep,
and then you hear it, and you can almost hear it echoing something you've heard or been told, and you're like, oh, I used to think that. And so unfortunately, it seems to be a very constant thing now. You'll just have random epiphanies at very odd times.
Through all the training that you've done, is there anything else that has surprised you during your training?
I think I'm surprised by that first session with clients, the amount of people that seem like they feel silly for coming to counselling. It's like, oh, well, I just want to talk about this, and I'm fine, really. And even though they've brought themselves to counselling, it feels like there is still that, I don't know whether it's a stigma or it's just that doubt that you should be having to go to counselling or something.
Yeah.
And then when people start opening up to you, and then you realise that there is so much out there that needs a safe space for people to talk about. If that answered anything. So,
you mentioned the first time you saw a client. That must have been quite nerve-wracking.
Oh, it was terrifying.
Because you go from your level 2, your level 3, and the first year of your level 4, where you're in those triad groups that I remember so vividly. Where you fight to try and find something to bring to the group so that you can have something to work on.
Or a few people would print off, you could get scenarios online for students to use.
Yeah.
So then we used to have fun afterwards where you'd be like, was that real or did you make that one up? So, yeah.
Excellent. So, when it came to actual clients, did you find that there was much of a difference between the trials that you'd have at college to the actual work that you do on your own with no one else in the room but you and your client?
Definitely. Obviously your triads, it's with your classmates.
Yeah.
So there is a level of comfort there already because you know them, you see them regularly. So you're used to talking to them, and they may bring the same sort of thing to you more than once. So it's already like a continuation of a bit like talking to a friend more than the restrictions or boundaries that you would have with a client.
We like boundaries.
Yes. And I think for clients, it's obviously nerve-wracking. You don't know who's going to walk into your session. Are they going to like you? Are they going to want to talk to you?
Yeah.
Some clients will open up almost instantly and sort of dump all this information at you, and you're like, oh, okay, which bit would you like to start with? And then you've got others that might just sit there and look at you and give you 1 or 2 word answers, and it's a very long drawn out silence.
Yeah.
And it can be awkward trying to find that right space and way to talk to people.
Yeah. But when you've got that silence and that first time where you first meet each other, and with those clients that are nervous and worried about what to say and how to say things and what they should or shouldn't share, a lot of the time it is just allowing them to sit and be quiet and gain that comfort.
Yeah, I think also anyone who listens to this who knows me, the thought of me being able to sit there quietly for a while might surprise them. But I think that's also something that people don't realise is in a counselling session, even if you're not speaking, it's not an awkward silence. You're sitting with your client in that silence rather than just, oh, I'm not talking. I don't know how else to explain it other than it's different. You're sat with them, not just sat in a room with them.
You're allowing them the space that they need, essentially.
And I think it's surprising how many people need that silence sometimes.
I've had clients that have come in, and it surprised people when I've mentioned it that sometimes it's not, a mental health thing that's going on, or it's not essentially something that they're coming in with a problem. I've had clients where they've just come in and just wanted to talk because they don't have anybody else to talk to, because everybody has an opinion, or they have a judgment, or something's going on where they don't feel heard, or they don't feel like they can get things across. So I've had clients come in where they just want to sit and just talk and unload.
I think that ties in really neatly as well with the confidentiality aspect of it, because we can all have best friends and we can all have people we're comfortable talking to, but there is still always going to be that level of being afraid they'll repeat it to someone, or it has happened to them. Yeah,
or there's something that you don't feel that you can say to somebody quite close to you as well.
It's the same with online anonymity, if I said that right. I think people find it a lot easier sometimes to talk to a complete stranger about something than somebody very close to them. So I think we managed to combine all of that together.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that sense of being able to just share without repercussion.
I can throw in a really good counselling thing for you if you want. The unconditional positive regard. I paid attention in my lessons.
There you go. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the absolute lack of judgment, no bias, no anything. People can just say whatever they want to within reason. Some boundaries still.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's their space. And if you've got a paying client, or it's through a charity or the NHS, it's still their space that they can choose what they want to bring.
Or they could bring nothing at all and just sit there for the whole time. It's up to them.
And I've actually had clients that do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The whole hour, absolutely nothing.
Wow.
Pure silence.
I do know someone who said they've let one of their clients lie down for the whole session. They were just lying there across the sofa while they talked, and I was like, well, that sounds quite nice.
Well, we do actually have a beanbag in one of the rooms where a lot of the younger clients do like to just throw themselves in and just stay there.
Nice.
And we've also got Bob.
I've met Bob. Bob's amazing.
He is. He's awesome. He's our MMA dummy.
Yeah.
That both adults and children can enjoy. And they do make use of him as well.
I was about to ask if you had a lot of people beating him up.
Oh, yes. I've had older clients, or adults, where we've put Bob next to them on the sofa, and they've given him a wallop or screamed and shouted at him.
Fantastic.
So he's got some great uses, old Bob. So when it comes to clients and your experience with your clients dealing with depression and anxiety, how do you relate to those experiences, and how do you feel you manage working with that in the room with clients?
Personally, I feel like I can empathise and relate to that really well.
Mm-hmm.
I have generalised anxiety disorder.
Okay.
So I can empathise with that side of it really well. And I have had my own battles with depression over the years. I had several years where I wasn't really able to work, and it was pretty bad. I was really struggling.
Yeah.
So I feel when people bring that to a room, I can understand that, and I also understand that having someone turn around and say, oh yeah, I've been through that, I understand, can be really, really annoying. So I would hope that I can use my own experiences to be able to help clients with it. I mean, I could elaborate more. I live in a small town. There is a lot of people that, I have to pick my words carefully here, I think. find ways to self-medicate or deal with depression issues.
Okay.
On their own without actually seeking a proper treatment for it, or thinking that something like that won't help them. Not a lot of faith.
A lot of people feel like that, and a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
When it came to you and your anxiety and depressions over the years, how did you manage all of that? What was the processes that you went through to...
I think for a long time I was burying my head in the sand. I think for a long time it's trying to understand the difference between, yeah, okay, I am a bit depressed, and no, I am depressed, and having to understand what is and isn't normal.
Yeah.
That's a word I don't like very much, normal. But no, I think at first I sort of would keep pushing it off and thinking, well, everyone else can manage, why can't I? Which I think we probably hear that a lot from people.
Yeah, we like to push through, be strong.
Of course, because, you know, everyone else is doing it.
Yeah, we don't like to show weakness.
No. And I will admit, I probably went through a phase where I was drinking, binge drinking. Yeah. There was probably substance abuse in the past as well.
It's a management tool, isn't it?
Of course, because you can disassociate from what you're feeling or numb it completely and then not feel it anymore. Which is great until everything wears off and then you feel it 5, 10, 15 million times worse.
Flooding in,
Yeah, and I think I'd got into quite a destructive cycle of behaviour. I was also, I will admit, not a nice person during that time. I think hurt people, and I think a lot of the sadness, anger, frustration, anything you're feeling internally, you can project outwards onto other people. And especially if you're in a dark place, you can assume that everyone else is probably being quite negative. And so yeah, it's definitely a difficult and dark situation to be in. Yeah.
Environment can also play a big part in that as well.
Definitely, especially if you already feel mentally isolated, then perhaps being physically isolated, cutting yourself off from people, or only associating with people that aren't necessarily the best ones to be around.
Yes, the negative impact, yes.
Yeah. So I think it can turn into a very vicious cycle.
I can imagine it does. So, working with clients, and you've had a few now.
Yes.
And confidentially, of course. Have there been any moments in the work that you've done with clients so far that have deeply moved you or surprised you, or you found quite challenging at times?
I think there's probably been a few, but the main one that would stick out to me, I had a particular client who didn't say much, again, someone who used to use silence a lot, and then this one particular session, they were talking to me and sort of looked and then just said, well, actually, and then, oh my God, all of this stuff poured out, all the things that had happened to them, were happening to them, what they'd deal with. They got very emotional. This was quite a young person. And then you have to sit there and listen to this person's pain, and you can hear their frustration. And this particular person kept saying why a lot. And I know we're not meant to, but I sort of took that away with me. And after the session, I felt myself feeling really frustrated. And I'm like, well, why would that happen to this person? And how could they feel this way and be isolated? And
so how did you manage that?
I went to my own counsellor and mentioned that I'd taken things home with me.
Fabulous,
and was dealing with it. I mentioned it to my supervisor, so I could deal with it in a professional way as well.
Love it.
And I also spoke to my classmates.
Wonderful.
And I just sort of said, has anyone else had this happen to them?
So peer supervision.
Yeah. So more self-care is always a good answer.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's self-care on 3 different levels.
Yeah, and I think it was just nice to know that this does happen.
Yeah.
And we're not inhuman. We are going to end up feeling our own way about stuff.
We're also very emotional human beings ourselves.
It's just learning to manage that, and I think it's important now after a session. I learned that I need to take that bit of time after a session to ground myself, deal with it, especially if I'm doing, say, some notes or something, and I just leave it in the session then, and then when I leave, it's not with me. If that makes sense.
It does indeed. So a follow-up question to that would be, what was the teachable moment there for you?
The teachable moment there, I think, for me would be, I need to understand the processing of things a little bit better, and having that moment after a session to ground myself.
So is that the processing while you're working with the client, or is that afterwards, or both?
Well, both actually. I think being able to hear someone and remember that it's their stuff, not yours, and that we are here to help people, but we're not here to fix things for them.
Yes.
That's the other one that I think has become a big thing with progressing through this and learning teachable moments. Have
you had that with any of your clients so far, where they come in and say, fix me?
I have had one client in particular who used to keep asking me, what should I do?
Yeah.
And it's having to find that sort of polite way of being, well, I can't tell you what you should do, but I can help you figure out what you want to do.
Or what you need to do.
Yeah, I'm not telling people how and what to do things.
It's an exploration. You're joining them on their journey.
Yeah, it's client-led.
And that's the person-centred aspect of the therapy that we're taught at Petrock, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So how do you support the clients in building up hope when they're feeling stuck, or when they're feeling overwhelmed with what they've brought in? Because some clients, they can sit down, they seem okay, and they can be okay, but as soon as they start talking about the traumas and aspects like that,
I think it's important to remember that you have to go at the pace the client is ready for.
I like that.
Thank you. So if I have a client in front of me that is visibly uncomfortable, or even sometimes it's not visibly, sometimes you can still see, I think it's important to let them know that they don't have to tell you, not there and then. It's not something that they should feel pressured to get out at a certain point.
Yeah, there's no expectations.
No.
I think is the main point there.
No, and I think you need to understand that sometimes if a client comes out with something before they're ready to, that is going to cause far more harm than good, because there's going to be a fallout from it. And then they leave your safe space where you've had your session, and they're back out in the real world, and that trauma will be at the forefront again.
Still got it all going on.
So I think also making sure your clients are ready to leave the room before you end a session is important.
Okay, so here's a question for you.
Oh God.
How do you manage that? How do you manage, we'll go with the client's expectations in regards to ending the session and them not going away feeling all torn up inside and stressed and anxious and depressed with everything that's just been discussed and gone through in the session. How do you manage that in a way to allow them to leave in a more positive way, I suppose is the best way to put it?
I think timing is a good important thing. I think you're not going to see that you've got, say, 10 minutes left of a session and then ask them something relating to the horrible trauma they've just brought up so that they keep delving further. I think it's important to make sure you can use the time of your session wisely.
Okay.
And I think also for a lot of my clients, I bring them back to the present moment.
So what does that mean? Bring them back to the present moment? What are you talking about?
I'm trying to think how to word this now. There are some clients I may say as the conversation draws to a natural close, I would bring them back to the present moment by saying, what are you planning to do after your session today? Or asking them if they want to schedule their next session in and move to a more admin sort of state of frame of mind. Because it brings them back to that present moment and being, oh, okay, I'm doing this now. And so it prepares them to leave the session a bit more.
Do you check in with them as well in regards to how they're feeling and where they are with knowing the session is coming to the end?
Yeah, I always ask them and say, like, are you okay to leave? How are you feeling now? Do you need a minute? Yeah. Like, because I'm not just going to sort of say, thank you for the end of the session today. There's the door.
Well, some clients do actually feel or think that when they come in, they've got from this time to that time. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah, I'm not kicking anyone out of the room, but I think.
So, do you go over the time that is allotted in regards to the sessions that you have?
If I need to, I have.
Okay.
Not necessarily giving them the extra hour for next week or anything like that, but you need to make sure that your client isn't then going to leave the room and end up in a worse state than they were when they first came into it.
So making sure that they're mentally in a safe space or a safe place.
Or that, obviously, when we first start seeing people, you know that they've got people they could maybe speak to, or there's somewhere they could go. We can recommend self-care for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. See what they do for their own time and things like that. So what would you say was the most challenging of all your clients so far? When I say clients, what would you say is the most challenging part of the work that you've had so far as a student therapist?
Challenging part of the work so far is, I think, that teachable lesson from earlier, learning that we're not here to fix things for people. Yeah. We're here to help them and work alongside them. Yeah. I think challenging moments are also when you see someone that is really upset or angry, or they have those strong emotions. Yeah. Learning to sit with them in it. Yeah. I think that's also a big deal. I think it's very individual to each client. I don't think you could ever pick one specific thing. I think it depends on
absolutely. It's
like who you're dealing with and what it is.
Yeah. That individuality. No two are alike.
No, they're really not. I think I can remember one particular day I had two clients. The first one that came in, really talkative. The session flew by. It was very easy. The next client that I had in a bit later on, absolutely not the same.
No?
No, they were really quiet. They weren't answering with much. And obviously you don't want to feel like they're being interrogated. But it was just the difference and the contrast between the two people. It can be quite a switch, having to learn to go from one to the other.
So how do you manage the quieter of the clients, where you get your one-worded answers or a single sentence, or there's like 10 minutes of silence and they're staring into space, or how do you manage keeping the sessions going when they need to keep going? Because obviously some clients won't want to continue for certain reasons, but then gently being pushed to confront or work with and process some of these things. How do you manage that? How do you get them to engage?
Asking them is my main one. If you can see someone doesn't want to answer, or if they are being quiet, I can just sort of say, well, I notice you're being very quiet today, or you don't really seem to want to talk about much. Why is that? Or what's happening for you? And see if you can get them to explain why they're not feeling like they talk at that moment.
And what if they don't respond?
I mean, if they didn't respond at all to you asking them something, I'd just be like, are you okay? But yeah, again, I think it depends on your clients and who you have in front of you, because you also get to know them with each session. Yeah. So you can see some people are naturally quiet and won't say anything.
Yeah.
So you know it's not a case of needing to prompt them and push them. That's just how they are.
Yeah.
Whereas others, you'll notice it's a change in behaviour and you can say, oh, I noticed that something's different today. And what's going on for you. So I think it's learning to work with it.
With all your training and everything that you've had so far, because as I mentioned earlier, did you do the intro as well? So you did the intro level 2, and then level 2 skills, level 3 theory, and then the wonderful level 4 diploma.
Yes, for 2 years.
With all of this stuff you're learning and going through, all the techniques and the models and everything else.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you feel more drawn to? Is there anything that you enjoy using or doing the most? Do you lean more towards? Or I suppose the better question is, what resonates with you when it comes to...
As in method or skills? All of it?
The way that you practice, what resonates with you? You know,
I think the one... I won't call it a trick, but the one particular method, technique, whatever you want to call it, that I have used and I don't necessarily rely on it, but it's kind of my go-to, is drawing people's attention to their body language.
Okay. And
drawing people's attention to gestures they've made when they're speaking, the paraverbals, stuff like that. And I think that I've got really good results from people doing that before now.
Okay. So with that in mind, do you find there's much of an issue, or there's a big difference, or for you there's no difference when it comes to online work as well?
Funnily enough, that is something that I was worried about, is doing the online work when you can't really see that as much. But funnily enough, there are still tells, there are still things you can pick up on. And again, if you're getting used to working with a particular client online, you can see what is a normal facial expression for them and then what perhaps isn't. And I think also when there's a complete lack of anything, you can tell that they're trying to hold things in quite a lot, so you can bring their attention to that. So I think there's definitely still ways of working with it online. It's just adapting.
So would you say it's more challenging, or as equally as challenging as it would be to have someone in the room?
I think it's equally challenging, just in its own different ways. Obviously, if someone's sat right in front of you, there's a lot more access. You can see them fully for a start as well.
Yeah, you can see the body language as a whole.
Yeah.
Rather than just the head and shoulders.
If you're lucky, because sometimes if someone's moving their camera, which I've had, there's one particular client who doesn't have a very good internet connection.
Yeah.
And I've realised now I have to move occasionally so they don't think that I've frozen.
Yeah, I've had that as well a few times.
So I think it can also work both ways, so they don't think it's just a blank face staring at them.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to self-care again, what does self-care look like for you as a student counsellor, holding those spaces for others?
I think when people hear the word self-care, especially as a woman, they just think, oh, you're going to have a bath, glass of wine, like girl moment type thing. And I think now that I'm working with clients, I have a better understanding of why people need self-care. So I think
very taxing work.
Yes, it can be very mentally taxing, emotionally taxing. But also, if you have someone sat in front of you, and this is the part I haven't liked, you can see it reflected back on you. I think there's the saying, isn't it? It's you can be really great at giving advice, but won't take it yourself.
Absolutely.
So sometimes if I've had a client sat in front of me and I find myself asking, what are you doing for you? Like, do you have any self-care, you moments? And I'm thinking, you hypocrite. So that was another thing that made me sort of realise I need to do a bit more self-care while I'm doing the work.
Well, that's a fair point. So with that in mind then, how do you balance empathy with emotional boundaries?
Weirdly enough, I don't think I've had too much of an issue with that, because I understand I can be empathic, but that's not my stuff. it's someone else's. So having that emotional boundary line of understanding, this is their problems, not yours. You are not here to fix it.
Yeah.
You have to let people express it however they're going to, but you don't get to keep that then. That's not your problem. You're not taking it with you.
Yeah, and I suppose that can also fall in line with transference and counter-transference.
And parallel processing.
Indeed.
I have actually had a little episode of parallel processing recently, or sort of.
With clients or with the triads?
With a client. There's been conversations about neurodivergence.
Can you elaborate a little bit on parallel process for us?
No, probably not. But essentially, having a client going through something that either you are going through yourself or have been through, and then as they are working through their version of it, you are then working through yours, and there can be a bit of an overlap sometimes, perhaps, where you can blur the lines between what is their stuff and what is yours.
Yeah.
If that works well enough.
It works.
So, yeah, my client was having conversations about neurodivergence and some issues there.
Yeah.
And I personally believe that I have undiagnosed ADHD.
Okay.
I've done a lot of research into it. But I also feel that perhaps while I am dealing with clients that are going through this themselves, this is not the time for me to go through having maybe a diagnosis if I want to go down that route, for me to do ADHD testing, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I need to keep it separate, and I didn't think this would be a good time for me to pursue that for myself while I have other people dealing with it.
Okay. So do you have much in the way of neurodiverse clients at all?
One specifically. There also seems to be a lot more people now that are more accepting of it, or are more open to it. I think there's a lot more people, and I've got clients that have dealt with either people close to them are neurodivergent, they've got children that are. So I think it's definitely something that is coming up a lot more. Yeah,
it's very more widely recognised. Both accepted and not accepted in the communities. Obviously you're going to have a bit of pushback with change and new things that are going on, but there are, I think in the last few years there's been several million increases in regards to applications for assessments and stuff over the last several years, for sure.
Coincidentally, I think moving forward, more studying, I'm very seriously considering looking more into undiagnosed or late diagnosis ADHD, ADD in women, because that's, no swearing, there is so much there. And I think when you look at, particularly with masking, and how a late diagnosis can then cause its own problems, which then manifest in other ways. And
very much so.
It's like peeling an onion. You deal with one situation, and then there's something else, and then there's something else.
There's always something else.
And I don't think people realise, especially myself, people think ADHD is just, lack of attention, being hyperactive. There's so much more to it, and there's an emotional level to it.
Very much so.
And just with the research for myself, understanding various bits and pieces and thinking, oh my God, I didn't know this was related to that. And so, yeah, I think going forward that may well be a niche I would like to explore.
Sounds like a very wise directional move, for sure. Especially with the increase in assessments, and there's such a lack of diagnosis at the moment as well, because the services are so overwhelmed by it. Which at the moment
brings me back to the reason I first wanted to start working within counselling and mental health. It's just not only are there quite limited services, the ones that do exist, huge waiting lists, a huge demand on them. So there's a full circle.
Absolutely. Okay, well, with the ideas around you becoming a therapist? What values and qualities do you believe make a good therapist?
Oh no. I think for me personally, I think that the idea of not judging anyone for anything is a huge one.
Yeah.
That acceptance and not having any bias, being able to leave everything at the door.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Empathy. I'm not going to start listing the moral qualities and stuff like that. Be here all night trying to remember those.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think basically just being human and that wanting to let people have that safe space to talk.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So when you think about the kind of therapist that you want to be, what is it that comes to mind, and what's the reason that it matters to you?
When I grow up, I think it matters because for a start, I don't look like what people would expect for a therapist, I don't think.
Yeah.
Especially after having a brief look online at people out there. For anyone listening, I have bright green hair, several piercings, sides of my head are shaved, lots of tattoos. So I think it's important for people to find therapists and counsellors that they can relate to.
Yeah, that they're comfortable with.
I had a client once and I wasn't sure how to take it at the time, but I'm glad she said it. I had a client, as she left, she sort of looked at me and said, "Oh, I'm so glad you don't look like a stuffy normal counsellor." Just sort of looked at me, normal? And she went, "Oh, well, you know what I mean." I'm like, "Yeah, I think I do." And it was a nice moment.
That's a sweet thing to say.
It was, and had someone else compare me to an alien.
You can take that any which way you like, yeah.
I mean, I think it's just the bright green hair that does it.
Yeah.
But so I think it's important for me to be a therapist or a counsellor that people can relate to.
Yeah.
You can build that therapeutic relationship, that you don't need to worry about any form of judgment or, outside of the room I might repeat something, which obviously wouldn't.
Indeed. Confidentiality.
But yeah, I just think it's important also to make sure we're doing it for the right reasons and have supervision.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And your own therapy when you need it.
Exactly.
As a last thought then, for those listening, what would you say to anybody out there now that's possibly struggling and worrying about therapy and wondering whether or not to have therapy? What message would you give them?
I think it's very important to realise that as much as it's a cliche, you are not alone if you feel that way and you're struggling. I think going to counselling would be helpful, even if it helps you realise you don't want to go to counselling. But I think having someone you can talk to and have it be 100% confidential, all about you, and helping you work through whatever you want to, can only be beneficial. It's giving yourself that time and attention.
Well, thank you very much, Claire, for joining us today and sharing some of your story in becoming a
for waffling
therapist.
at you.
So for our listeners, as usual, we will put links for support in the description for the podcast, and we also have a Facebook group where you can join to share any ideas for further podcasts or get involved and join us if you want to. Till next time.